This is Fresh Tracks Weekly. It is Elk Week, so every day we've been putting out elk content, including today where we have an interview with Jesse DeVoe, who is a wildlife technician with Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, and who is working on an elk research project in northwest Montana. It was great to catch up with Jesse, who also used to be my boss back in my wildlife tech days, and to learn about the massive collaborative effort that's going on in northwest Montana to help better understand the elk population. But before we get to that, I also have to let you know that we are selling elk stamps, which feature some awesome artwork from Lyle Hebel from MTN Tough. Proceeds from those stamps go directly to the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. It's a cool way to donate and to get a sweet sticker. And of course, we have a few news stories from the week. The Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership, along with Montana FWP, announced details around the Wildlife Migration License Plate Design Contest. Earlier this year, 2 bills were passed in Montana to establish a dedicated funding stream for wildlife crossing structures in the state, one of which included creating a dedicated account to be funded via specialty license plate sales. Montana has numerous specialty license plates that help fundraise for various causes or organizations. To help come up with a cool design for this license plate, TRCP and Montana FWP are facilitating a contest where artists can submit designs to be featured on the plate. The winning artist will receive $1,000 along with a sample souvenir plate. The panel of judges are going to be comprised from people in the field of wildlife conservation or transportation safety, and they will choose the winner based on the criteria of a design that shows the following: a highway crossing structure, a recognizable Montana landscape, colors that ensure legibility of the plate numbers, something that appeals to Montana drivers and conservation communities, and a title that reflects the conservation message. Submissions will be accepted beginning August 15th and will be collected until October 17th. It's estimated that the license plate will bring in around $100,000 annually for wildlife crossing structures. This is in addition to around $500,000 in funding that will come in from the marijuana tax revenue via another bill from this past legislative session. The Department of Interior recently conveyed 28,000 acres of land to the Nana Regional Corporation in Alaska, bringing the total to 713,000 acres that has been transferred from the interior to Native corporations. The Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act was a mandate in 1971 that created 12 private, for-profit Alaska Native regional corporations and over 200 Native village corporations that are comprised of Alaska Native shareholders. Part of that mandate was to convey selected federal land to these corporations, and while the selections were completed in the 1970s, the Bureau of Land Management continues to work on these conveyances now. Secretary of Interior Doug Burgum said that, quote, "By putting land into Alaska Native hands, we are advancing opportunity in Alaska while reducing federal barriers to resource development," end quote. The 28,000 acres that was just conveyed lies on the western end of the proposed Ambler Road that has been a highly contentious issue in recent years. This land will no longer be accessible to the public, but rather be managed to allow for subsistence for local Native families and to provide value to the Native shareholders. Currently, according to the Nana Corporation website, it says that they have currently withdrawn from the involvement on the Ambler Access Project, saying that it does not align with their current stance. However, they remain open to future opportunities that honor our values and prioritize community well-being. A recent survey shows that 73% of Americans strongly or moderately approve of hunting, 14% disapprove, and 13% remain neutral or don't know. The survey was conducted by the Council to Advance Hunting and Shooting Sports along with the company Responsive Management. They questioned U.S. residents who were chosen from a firm that specializes in providing scientifically valid samples. Survey questions were designed to align with previous surveys to be able to look at trends and results over the years. The last survey was conducted in 2021, and it showed that 81% of people approve of hunting compared to the current 73%. They also looked into the reasoning behind their approval or disapproval, where respondents could note their approval level for a number of reasons. The reasonings that showed the highest approval ratings were for meat and to get locally sourced food and for conservation of healthy wildlife populations. The reasonings for the lowest approval ratings were for a trophy, and for the challenge, and for the sport. There were a number of other reasonings that ended up in the middle of the survey as well. But another factor that they looked at was the approval of certain species. The highest approval was for deer, followed by turkey, and then rabbit. And the lowest approval ratings were for African elephant, African lion, and mountain lion. The same survey looked at a number of other factors and also into approval of shooting sports, but it is interesting to get a glimpse into the minds of the average American to understand why they approve or disapprove of hunting. The rest of the survey and report break down respondents by location and demographic. It definitely makes you ponder as to what might be influencing them to have their opinions on hunting. Because a majority of Americans do not hunt, so their ideas are likely shaped by portrayal of hunting in media or happenstance experiences that they may have had in their lives and just conversing amongst themselves. All right, now we're going to jump into our deeper dive where Jesse DeVoe is going to fill us in on what is happening with elk research in Northwest Montana. This is a massive project, and I want to give some credit and thanks up front to Kelly Proffitt, Josh Millspaugh, Chad Bishop, Paul Lucas, Andy Stewart, Trevor Weeks, Carly Teller, Chris Hansen, Nicole Beeler, and Zach Farley, along with the numerous technicians, landowners, and other people that have helped out on the project. And now, Jesse DeVoe. I'm here with Jesse DeVoe. He used to be my boss back in the day, the Mountain Ungulate project.
Yeah, we have a history, don't we?
Yeah. Yeah, it was that was a lot of fun. I feel like I learned so much working for you and Carson and Bob, and just had a blast surveying mountain goats and bighorn sheep. You guys did all the heavy lifting and the real work, all the research. I just looked through binoculars and documented stuff on computers, but
yeah, those were good times. It was like pretty difficult stuff we were doing. We were probably in the best shapes of our lives at that point.
Yeah, by the end of the season. Yep. Yeah. So Mountain Ungulate project was like bighorn sheep, mountain goats. That was your master's work, right?
Yep.
But now you're working for FWP full time and doing all sorts of different wildlife research. But the big one that we're here to talk about today is elk research in Northwest Montana, which is a pretty cool project. Like, I'm excited to learn more about it. I've just seen some highlights and read a little bit of the reports online, but I'm excited to learn more about this.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here to talk about it. We often don't do projects of this scale and extent, trying to understand what's going on with elk populations. So it's pretty unique, and I feel really lucky to be a part of it as well. So
there's a few things different about some of the research that I've seen in the past. Like in Northwest Montana, there's just differences in that area. Mm-hmm. Like that part of the state, you got really dense timber. It's like a different climate almost a little bit. You have different predator mixes, different habitat.
Yep.
I tend to like bounce back to the greater Yellowstone region for like my baseline.
Sure.
So like what are some of the big differences you think that are just in that study area that are different from here?
Yeah, a lot of FWP's elk research has gone on in southwest Montana. We've had a few projects going on in central and eastern Montana. But as far as like elk research, heavy southwest Montana, that's where we've been doing a lot of work. So this is really great that we've been able to move into a new ecotype or ecosystem. It's a lot wetter forest, more wet forest. So that includes a lot of like hemlock and cedar and spruce.
Gotcha.
But it's all a lot of canopy cover and very steep terrain. You go up there to Thompson Falls. It's on the lower Clark Fork. It's really pretty. There's trees everywhere. It's a lot different from here. You can't see elk from a long ways away, like you can around here when you're hunting or sighting for elk. But
it just seems like there's a lot less forage overall. Like, right? I mean, there's just less grass.
Yeah.
And then that's like the other thing too. I feel like the big changes just in the last 100 years, like you had all this logging that came through. You had a bunch of clear cuts, which created a lot more grass for the elk. Now some of those clear cuts are growing up. You have less forage. And so it just like the habitat is changing. And one of the things that I find super interesting about the area is like reading, just like historical, kind of adventure books where, whether it's Lewis and Clark or whoever's going through those areas. It seems like it wasn't super game rich. Like there wasn't a ton of elk in some of those areas. It almost feels like there's kind of an artificial high of elk after the habitat changes. Like we created more grass. We got rid of a lot of predators, 70, 100 years ago. And now we have more predators back on the landscape and there's less grass. So
yeah,
that's like one of the interesting changes that's to me like different about, other landscapes where we might have a ton of forage, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's one of the biggest things that we're interested in with this research is it is a place that timber harvest has changed dramatically through time. It was logged extensively, 700 million board feet annually in the late 70s, which,
Jeez.
I mean, I don't know how to visualize million board feet, but 700 million is
That's
a
a lot.
And then in the 2000s, that dropped in half to about 350 million board feet. And then more recently, it's even lower to 200 million. And so there's a long history of logging that's gone on, extensive logging that's gone on. And that has gone way down. And so a lot of, like you said, those cuts they're going through their successional stages, and oftentimes it's just those thick young trees that are growing up in those cut blocks and shading out any of the forage that's available. So that's a big change that has gone on there. There's also a lot of change going on in the bottomlands, the valley bottom. That's where a lot of the private lands are. And, there's been agriculture that's come up in the past 50 years, maybe. And even more recent, there's a lot of, breaking up of those parcels into development. And that's all elk habitat through there.
Is that like their main winter range is kind of the valley floor there?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So knowing all that, what would you say the main goals of this current study? How far into the study are you, I guess?
So we just finished our third year of, I guess, captures.
Okay.
So we're in our third summer of kind of data collection, monitoring of the animals and all that. So this will be our final push of data collection.
Okay.
Through this fall and maybe a little bit longer than that, but let's see, where were we going with that?
I was just kind of curious,
goals
like,
of the study.
yeah, kind of the main goals, like big picture, like we can dive into it a little further in a bit, but yeah, just like what prompted the study even, and then some of the goals that you're hoping to find out.
Yeah. I mean, I think there was what prompted the study. People are harvesting less elk.
Yeah.
In not only our study area, but I think it's a broader thing in the whole region 1 of FWP, which is that northwest region. Specifically, hunters really love bull hunting, and so they've noticed here and throughout the region that bull harvests have declined. It's kind of a region-wide thing. And our study area is one of the few study areas where we have a pretty good record of aerial surveyed count data from the management biologists on the ground.
Gotcha.
While harvests seem to have gone down, in our study area, the counts have indicated that they've stayed relatively consistent. There's an increase maybe, 20 years ago or something, but since then it's been pretty stable.
Like, why are there still similar number of elk? People are killing less bulls. Is this upset hunters? No, that's what prompts it. Of course, we're a bunch of crybabies. No. Like, why are we killing more bulls? I want to kill bigger and more bulls. Always.
No, I think I think it's legitimate questions because we don't necessarily know why that's happening, and that's kind of why we kind of got this project going, because these aerial counts that we have, they're minimum counts in a study area that is very densely treed, and so you can imagine that detection rate might be lower than like in southwest Montana, where you can see more of the elk on their winter range.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, because so much of that area is heavily timbered, and I guess maybe in that particular district, I feel like maybe it's a little bit of a luxury that they're wintering more in those open agricultural or just open fields, versus some of northwest Montana. It's like, I imagine you're not going to see a lot of the critters if they're in the tree. I mean, like, what do? You fly over, cool, they're in the trees. Like,
you can't see them.
It is interesting, like, area because of that. So densely timbered and everything.
The question then is are we seeing, like, are we just not counting the elk? Are we not, we don't really know how many elk there are. We're only getting a proportion of what might be available, and we don't really know how many there are, or if we're counting them all.
Yeah, but I mean, because the surveys are generally still a subset of the population, but you're looking at trends, right?
Yeah.
And
So
if the trends are staying the same,
you would
but then
think,
harvest is going down,
Yeah.
that's like the big question.
Yep.
Like, what's happening?
Yep.
And then, so I guess the other interesting aspect to that, I mean, would you say that the area is relatively predator rich? I mean, you have grizzly bears, black bears, mountain lions, wolves,
Yep.
all in that landscape. Maybe not all they're not all super high density necessarily, but they all exist there.
Yeah.
And they all will kill elk at times.
That's correct. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I'd say grizzly bears are the one species out of that list maybe that are pretty rare, and they're
because I suppose they're not that far south as often. I mean, they're
they will come through
north. They're
a
probably
little
more
further
dense.
north. We've never had any sightings there, but we talked to some of the private landowners, and they talk about occasionally sighting grizz, and I'm pretty sure we've had collared grizz come through that area, but at least specifically where our study area, it's not a whole lot of grizz. But yes, all the other species, wolves, lions, black bears, coyote.
Yeah, I suppose. Have you guys had instances where you found coyotes to take elk calves before?
We have. It's rare though. I don't know. Yeah, I guess I don't know if it's because coyote are less common there, but they
gotcha.
are there. We have had some, but it's very few.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I guess what are the things that you don't know that you would like to know? I guess
I'd probably start with how many elk are there. Like, can we get a better estimate of how many elk there?
So getting a better actual picture of what is the population.
Yeah. And how they're distributed across the landscape as well, and seasonally distributed as well. Sportsmen have noticed fewer elk on public land in areas where they used to be found. So there's questions about, why that might be the case. Is that distribution changes or numeric changes? So yeah, this project is really looking at trying to look at the multiple trophic levels from top down, bottom up influences on the elk population in that way. So we're trying to really understand what factors are influencing population vital rates and dynamics, and what factors are influencing the distribution of elk. We don't know things like the vital rates, survival and reproduction and recruitment, and then what is limiting those things if they are limited.
Yeah, because I guess in the surveys over the years, they're generally also looking at recruitment, like you said. So how many cows or how many calves per 100 cows, or whatever metric you generally put it in, right? So what percentage of the calves are surviving? In terms of actually conducting the research, that's the fun part, right, to me. So what does that look like? How are you guys collecting this new data?
Yeah, it's a massive effort, and I think to try to understand these complex systems and these hard questions, it takes a lot of effort and a lot of manpower, boots on the ground, sweat, tears, blood, too, and hard thinking. We kind of broke this up into a couple of different field sessions or whatever.
Okay.
We go out and collar the elk. We're collaring the adults, male and female elk, and we do this during the winter time. As far as doing the helicopter capture in the forests, how do you capture animals in heavy timber? It's too dangerous and it's too difficult to net gun in forests. So we use opioids, which we dart them and they go down very fast before they can disappear into the trees. So we mostly are darting in meadowy open areas and for the aerial stuff. And then because there's so much private lands that the elk are using in the winter down low, we can't really use the helicopter on all the private lands because it's such a mosaic of private.
I was going to say, there's not a lot of big parcels too. You'd probably push them to the next property pretty quick.
Yeah. So we utilized what we call clover traps, which are basically big mouse traps. They're steel framed traps that are probably 6 feet tall and 8 feet deep, maybe 3 feet, 4 feet wide, and they're surrounded by net. We have some fishing line that is kind of over some alfalfa bait in the back that they trip the fishing line, and a netted door falls behind them.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, how that complication is there. Just like the small parcels, and they're just not.
Yeah.
If they are on Forest Service or public land, it's all timbered, or a lot of it's timbered. Yep. So
it's all very challenging. We're limited by where we can go with the clover traps because we have to have private landowner permission, and we had some really incredible private landowners that let us on. And
so then you're putting GPS collars on them at that point?
Yep. The mature males get just a GPS collar.
Okay.
And then we let them go. The females, because we're interested in like pregnancy rates and whether or not they give birth, we collect blood to test for pregnancy as well as disease sampling.
Yeah.
We do take a tooth for aging, the
Okay.
vestigial canine or the ivory. We take that for aging. We take some body metrics, body measurements for body condition. And then we deploy a VIT. So a VIT, a vaginal implant transmitter. It's a unit that speaks to the collar and...
Oh, so it'll speak to the GPS collar?
Yeah.
Because in the past, they would just be emitting a radio signal, right?
So what it does
I'm out of the loop here.
Yeah, its technology has come a little ways.
Yeah.
So the VIT, when it comes out after birth, it's exposed to a different air temperature, and it stops moving. And so those two things together trigger an alert. Previously, it was just a VHF signal that would change.
You'd have to be out there
you'd have to be out there
constantly.
like checking. But with these new units, it comes out and it sends an alert to the collar. It'll actually send an alert to any collar in the region that walks by. And then we'll get an alert from the collar because we're getting daily or semi-daily locations to our desk all the time. But the collars are set up to send alerts like it's a birth alert. So
well, and that's probably even better data because, right, I guess in the past, like you got that VHF signal and then, I mean, you'd have two separate signals of here's where the VIT landed, but then as soon as that calf is able to walk, they're moving.
Exactly.
Right? But now you have the location of the cow in real time.
Yep.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, the VIT alert gives you a location and of where it is, and it makes a big difference. It's still very difficult to find a calf, but
especially in that environment.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's all the captures happening in
the winter.
And then what you're leading into with those VITs, like, because then you're able to go out and capture the calves because, I mean, I guess a lot of the mortality, a lot of the animals are dying in that first year of life. So that's kind of one of the big unknowns, right? Is like what's happening to those calves.
Yep, exactly.
So how does that process work?
Yeah, so every spring we basically put a call to volunteers within the agency to come out to help us capture calves. And we have a PhD student, Andy Stewart, on the project who kind of heads that up. We're monitoring all the GPS data and the VITs coming in. So we have multiple people in the mornings that are on their computers. They have to wake up super early to do this, but we have code that we run that identifies characteristics about the movement data that might suggest that they're calving. And we did this because we've had some VIT failures in the past, and we also have cows that don't have VITs. So because of the VIT failures and those animals, we wrote this code. And we run it every morning, and it flags individuals that we think might be calving.
Oh, that's cool.
So every morning, we get the VIT alerts, and then we run the code and see if there's any flagged animals. We get a list of animals and where they are, and then we send the teams out to those locations to try to find the animals. And then when you're out there, it's difficult.
It's steep, it's thick, you got tons of brush. And it
depends on the
cows,
spot. But
are they like... Have you noticed, do they seek out certain types of areas to give birth?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of how we identify when they're calving with our code. They change their movement patterns. They're doing their thing suddenly, and then suddenly they'll just go off alone. And, well, the they just go off. The GPS data just looks like they make a big movement,
Okay.
and then they'll isolate. We've seen them calve in all sorts of different habitats. We generally have some sort of search image of where they would want to calve. Like when we get into an area, it's like, I don't know, this doesn't look that great, but maybe over here, and then we can go look over there, and like that's actually where the calf is.
Gotcha. Okay.
But sometimes we're totally wrong. So. Yeah.
Imagine getting better at it though after a few years of like, like where do these things drop?
We go out and we grid search, so it's
Okay.
really the only way to like. You have to do it very like methodologically, otherwise you're really gonna miss it. But you string out in a line all your team, and you just do sweeps back and forth. We're also taking cues from the mom if we can see mom. Sometimes if you see her before she sees you, you can observe her and you may see the calf, or she may take looks and glances at her calf. And so then you can be like, oh, it's probably over there.
So once you have them in hand, then what's the process?
We try to be very fast. We're very cognizant of our scent and like how much we're handling them and handling time, because we certainly don't want to cause abandonment. And abandonment rate is very low. We're taking chest girth, we're aging them based on various characteristics such as hoof color and texture, and umbilical cord presence or scabbiness or freshness. We take a weight as well.
Okay, take a weight.
Yep. And then we put on a wee little elk collar. It's an expandable collar, so as they grow, it has these sewed pleats that kind of expand and expand as it grows. So after a year or more, they're supposed to wear out, and then they just fall off.
Okay, so you're collecting data for essentially 1 year on each of the calves. Gotcha.
Yep, typically, yep. And those... Yeah, so those are GPS collars. So they are sending us
live feed.
Yeah, I think it's one location a day or something.
Okay, I imagine it's probably is a smaller battery pack and stuff. Yep. Because you can only put so much payload on a little calf. Yeah. Yep. And then so once those are deployed,
so we put the collars on so that we can monitor survival. So there's still people out in the field constantly monitoring their survival, and those collars kick out mortality alerts when they stop moving. That keeps folks pretty busy.
Are you trying to get there as soon as the mortality goes off? You're trying to get there as soon as possible, figure out what killed it?
Yep, as soon as we can.
Gotcha.
Yep.
So you got people on standby ready to roll for that.
Yep. We investigate those mortalities. It's just like a crime scene, like trying to figure out. It's difficult. It takes time, but based on consumption patterns, what track and scat is around, bite wounds. We do sometimes take DNA swabs to identify certain predators on those bite wounds or whatnot. And so trying to figure out what killed it. So
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess one thing, when you're going to capture them, how long do you have like into them being born before they'll start running? Like, because like a lot, if they're newborn, they'll probably just sit there, right, and hide. Or do they like?
Yeah.
Do you guys? So do you have a pretty narrow window in which you got to find that calf?
Yeah, it's very narrow, and sometimes we don't find them on the first search or the second search, and then we're starting to get really worried after like the third search, because after about 3 or 4 days, they can run, and they can run fast and hard. So
they're already an elk. They are ready to.
Yep,
run
they are. They're
yeah.
It's funny to think about, like, I don't know, the whole biology of elk from the calves and everything makes them very difficult to study. So that's part of that, is like they are made to evade predators very young.
That's got to be one of the really susceptible times for predation too, though, right? Have you ever like gone in and then one's already been predated, like a bear found it or something?
Yeah, we've I think it's happened several times where we've seen the bear eating the calf there. Yeah, just like surprised the bear right there. And,
wow.
So that certainly happens. Yeah.
Huh.
Or we just there right after it got consumed or something.
Okay.
So
yeah.
Yeah. So it's a very vulnerable time for them.
You got people in the field doing that, and then the rest of the summer you said, so there's habitat work that's going
Yep.
into it too.
So actually that was a separate team. So a separate crew that was the vegetation crew.
Okay.
They are going out and they're visiting randomly distributed sampling sites across the study area.
Okay.
And sampling along a transect and trying to identify all the plants there. We also get diet samples randomly collected through the study area if we can to identify the important forage species. And so then what we can do is basically take the vegetation that we sampled and filter it to just the forage species.
Oh, okay.
And then if we take the forage species and we send it to a lab to get analyzed for digestibility, then we get an idea of what quality of forage is in those forage species. So then we can, at that specific site, we can know what the forage quality is there because we know the species that are there and what phenological stage they're at.
Okay. So is that just like collecting elk pellets and then you're able to, so there's a process you can identify like what forage is in that elk pellet?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Or at least to a certain level?
Yep. We use DNA meta barcoding.
Oh, crazy.
So it's a little bit, more fancy than it used to be. It used to be it's plant fragment analysis, which is just literally
Going
someone
through,
in
like,
a scope, just
dang.
like saying, I think this is this is that because of the cell structure that I see here or something. But now it's just DNA, which makes a big difference. So
that's cool. Yeah, because all my years as a field tech, that's always where my work stops. I collect the things, and I don't know what happens with it after.
The poop
I don't have to actually use my brain very hard. I just like look for the animals, pick up the poop. That's all I do. No, that's cool. With all that, you're putting out all these collars. You got all these elk across the landscape. You got cows, bulls, calves now. Obviously, there's going to be a whole analysis part of this project too, right? So I always struggle, and I know it's hard to ask like biologists what actually, like, what's happening, what are the results, because it's a lot more complicated than that. But do you has there been any anecdotal findings so far? Or is there anything that's surprised you that's different than what was hypothesized, or anything like after seeing some of this data that's coming in, like? In terms of what I feel like a lot of hunters who are probably listening to this right now, they're always curious. It's always the predator's fault. Like, and predators kill elk, there's no doubt. And so like they want to know what are killing the elk. Like that's like just the nature of how a lot of hunters look at this. Yeah. And so I think that's on people's mind for sure. But like, have you noticed is there one predator that stands out as what's killing the most elk?
We went into this project with we know a lot of people think that the wolves are the primary thing going on, but we definitely wanted to be able to look at everything that's going on, because it's not that we don't think it's wolves. Wolves are probably part of the picture. There's a lot more going on.
Oh, yeah.
It's much more variable than I thought.
Really?
I kind of thought that maybe it would be one or two or three things that we could point a finger at that's killing the elk. A main driver. Yeah, it's there's nothing that's strong like that. It's a highly variable. They're dying from all sorts of things.
Gotcha. Give me a list of what are some of the mortalities that you've been able to, because then I guess there's also I imagine this is a tricky part too, because you have mortalities where it's okay, we're high confidence that it was a black bear or it was. But then there's also probably we think that it might have been this, but we're not positive. Because as soon as something, at least maybe less so with a calf, I don't know. But on an adult, I imagine once the animal's dead, then you have all of the predators showing up as scavengers too. Mm-hmm. So it's not necessarily okay, well, there's wolf tracks, bear tracks, and mountain lion tracks. I don't know what one killed it.
Yep.
They've all been by the kill site. So
those are all very good points, and it can be very difficult, and we do put a confidence level on our assessments of what it is. So we have we have confident or probable, and so if we're confident, it's we know it's that. We came across it and it was cached just like a mountain lion would cache it, or like the consumption pattern is exactly how a mountain lion would do it, or we saw how it was killed in the tracks and in the snow or whatever.
Gotcha. Yeah. So what would be that list? What things have you seen?
Hunter harvest is one of them,
Right.
but it's not a top one, at least for the females. So we have a handful of hunter harvest, a handful of predation, lions primarily, a few wolves, not very many at all.
Interesting.
And a handful of natural. There's no evidence of disease that we can see. There's no evidence of predation. There's no evidence of human involvement.
So you like just come up on a calf and it's just still laying there
It's
dead?
still there, yeah.
Like non-consumed.
Yeah.
Non-consumed.
Yeah.
Dang. So do you do like at that point, is there like a necropsy or, and then,
Yep.
but at some point it's still just inconclusive exactly what?
Sometimes it can be. But
it-
we do send samples to the lab
Okay.
to try to understand if there's a disease thing going on. So
Is like malnutrition one of the things that?
Yep, we observed starvation and malnutrition, but usually it's associated with some sort of previous injury. So,
Oh, okay. It's like compounding effects.
yeah, it seems like we've had a couple of like foot or hoof injuries, and then there's the elk just starves to death for whatever reason.
Gotcha.
It can't get around as it needs to be. This list I'm listing off right now is for adult female.
Okay.
It's not for calves.
Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha.
None of those like pop out as a top thing. It's all just variable
Yeah.
for them.
And you
So-
only had a handful of bulls that are collared, right? Or
Yeah, so it was very challenging to find bulls from the helicopter and to get them in the clover traps.
yeah. I imagine. Like,
yeah.
well, I guess you try to do it after they shed. Is that like the goal?
They still have their antlers,
Oh,
so
during the- yeah.
they're probably less likely to go into the traps.
especially like a mature bull.
Yeah.
Although I don't know if you'd want to deal with a mature bull in a clover trap.
Yeah, we've had a small few, and they've always been very interesting.
I bet.
Yeah. So we didn't get very many of those, unfortunately. Maybe less than 10 our first winter, and then we just couldn't capture very many the next couple of winters. But we did just have recently a spring capture, which hasn't been attempted in Montana before, to try to do helicopter capture in the spring for
cool.
adult males. And so that was actually pretty successful. We got 10 more bulls online through that method. So I think
nice.
total about 18, 20 bulls we got collars on.
Yeah.
And so that was just a recent capture. And so we haven't had a lot of time since then to really see what they're doing, and they haven't died yet. So,
right. Yeah. Figuring out what's killing them.
We still have a lot to learn from the bulls because of that. But the ones that we have had out were primarily hunter harvest.
Yeah. Which kind of makes sense.
Yep.
I don't know. Although I guess like, because the other, factor, I guess if bulls have rutted hard and they're going into the winter in, less good condition, maybe they're more susceptible to predation. I've heard that as a theory in terms of like, but yeah, so it'll be interesting to see, I guess, what kind of data you collect.
Yeah.
But
yeah, we're interested too. We're pretty excited to have them online. So.
Yeah. And then what about calves?
So then the calves, it's also pretty variable, but it depends on their age, like we've talked about a little bit before.
Yeah.
And the patterns that I think we're seeing, but we're still monitoring. We're still in the middle of all of this, so I don't want to like say that it is this or not. And that goes for everything that I've said.
For sure. That's the hard part that people struggle to understand. It's like it takes time to actually analyze this, and then depending on the sample size, it's like some stuff is just anecdotal. It's like that doesn't necessarily mean that is a strong indicator that this is happening. It's just this is an observation.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's my qualifier for all of this. Is these are preliminary results. We still have data to come in. The analysis, what we see with our eyes might be different from what we see the analysis tells us. Which is with the calves, it seems like the younger ones are taken by black bears, and black bears have their nose down, just cruising through the forest looking for those calves.
Okay.
And then once they get a little bit older and they're more mobile, I think then the lions start keying in on them.
Okay.
And then after a certain point, then it seems like it's just all the other things.
There's
like
nothing a
specific.
Mismatch of other predators and causes at that point.
Yeah. So that's just a general trend that I think we're seeing. is kind of, and it makes sense for the biology of the bears and the biology of the lions as well, for when they're going to start keying in on those calves.
And that's the thing. So many people think wolves are a major factor, and maybe they can be in certain landscapes. But so you guys aren't seeing high levels of wolf cause mortality up here?
No.
Interesting.
Yeah. For adults, it's very, very low. I don't think we've had any wolves for the calves.
Really?
Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, people will be like, "Oh no, the wolves are coming." Everyone loves to grumble about wolves. People want one simple answer to the problem, and it's especially with wildlife. It's never just one thing.
No,
there's so many factors that affect populations and survival and all this stuff.
Yeah, and that's really why we need these sort of research projects.
Yeah.
And like this is a very intense project. I wish we had more resources because we could collect more sorts of data, but we're limited by financial constraints and all that, and we're doing the best we can, absolute best we can out there. And
was this part of this project? Is there collars on some of the predators too?
Yep, we went into this project focusing on black bear, wolves, and lions.
Okay, yeah.
So I guess I'll just start with the lions. We contracted with houndsmen. These houndsmen, we've worked with them in the past. They're great. They're awesome. They're really all about conservation, and they love being a part of the research projects, and they're totally awesome. But yeah, we use their hounds to tree the lions, and then we dart the lions out of the tree.
Okay.
And simply just put a collar on them. So that's for the lions. For the black bear, we use culvert traps during the spring, summer, fall. We bait them in with deer hindquarters, forequarters, and then dart them in the culvert trap and put a collar on them and let them go.
Okay.
We don't take a whole bunch of samples off of these animals. We're just getting the collars on. Yeah. For the wolves, the idea was to use helicopter and trapping techniques. Never could get them in the helicopter, and we got 3 total in trapping methods. So,
gotcha.
Yeah.
And so those collars, you're getting GPS locations on them as well?
Yep.
And then is that the primary thing, or I guess what questions are trying to be answered by those collars being out?
Understanding their distribution and patterns, like how they're using the landscape.
Okay.
We can use that information as a factor to relate into some of our other analyses of trying to understand like why might elk be using these areas or not.
Are you able to like look at the locations? Like, do you overlap them with the elk data? Like, so you got these collared elk, you got these collared predators, like when they interact. I mean, I guess some of that might just be anecdotal.
I guess the way in which we use it is not just overlapping the GPS data, and we build resource selection models for each. Basically it's like for an elk resource selection model, we might use the predator carnivore model to try to, as an explanatory factor, are the carnivores influencing where the elk are?
Gotcha.
So it's a little more analytic than just GPS locations, just overlaying each other. But
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And then again, on the habitat stuff, has there been anything surprising there in terms of forage quality, just like what habitat's available to these elk?
One of the big focuses was looking at the effects of different timber harvest strategies and time since harvest as far as like elk forage distribution is concerned. That's where we really learned a lot.
Was that like looking at past timber, or like was there like a new timber cut that you guys are like using as a part of the experiment?
Yeah, so it would be all past harvest. Yeah,
Gotcha.
We didn't have any like actual experimental
but just looking at we know when this was cut.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, we had a whole bunch of sampling sites in different ages and timber harvest strategy. There might be areas that were clear cut or that were thinned or
certain selective timber harvest.
Yep.
Different practice. Yeah, there's all sorts of different
all
ways
sorts
that
of
they
ones.
might.
And we kind of broke it into just a few categories, but and then we have the whole sequence of ages through time of the age of those cuts. What we found is it's kind of what we expected, is that the elk forage resources, mostly the quality, is highest in the recently harvested areas, particularly during the fall period. So in some cases, nutritional quality was 20 times higher than in unharvested forests. So those recently harvested timber areas are really important for providing high quality forage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, elk are grazers. They need grass, and grass just generally doesn't grow as abundant under densely canopied trees.
I think it's also interesting, though, because we don't get a whole lot of grass in our system, and from our diet, they're actually eating less grass than I would expect.
Oh, really?
And I don't know if it's just a regional thing for these elk.
Oh, yeah, it'd be interesting to compare, like, compared to other populations in different climates.
So it does seem like they focus a lot more on shrubs.
Gotcha. Browsing.
And some forbs, but also we have a lot of trees in their diet too.
Crazy.
So
that's interesting.
Yeah, and I do think when those harvested areas kind of grow old and stuff, there's less of the forbs and shrub component that they really like. So I think it's the same idea, but as far as like in our study area specifically, not sure that grass is that important. Maybe just the grass isn't as available, so that's why they focus on the other things.
It's interesting. I mean, but even just overall forage is probably less abundant, and I know that's one of the most interesting things about this area, and what I kind of alluded to at the beginning is just how the habitat has changed so much in the last 100 years, from being like probably like more densely timbered to then having all these timber cuts come in. Mm-hmm. Plus we killed a lot of predators, and all these factors work together. It's not like everything happens independently of one another. Yeah. And so without having big clear cuts and a lot of forage available, it's probably unlikely that we're going to like go back to a ton of elk being in northwest Montana. And then the other thing that we have to talk about too is that elk they're not the only animal on the landscape. There's other things, there's other animals out there too. And this just because maybe we as hunters want more elk, but then is that what's best for the ecosystem? I like these are just big questions to ponder.
They are big, and I think they might even be bigger than what's good for an ecosystem. As wildlife managers, we're take into account not just the biology of the critters, but also societal things. I mean, like that's part of wildlife management, and
all the development that happened, and all the like houses everywhere. There's little parcels. There's fences everywhere. There's the railroad going through. So you got reservoirs where they didn't exist, or where it used to be more forage. There's just so many things.
Wildlife are living in the context of humans, and humans are living in the context of wildlife.
Yeah.
You can't get away from that. Like, we can't go back. Like, what's best for the ecosystem might be for all humans to disappear, but that's not going to happen.
And you have to ask, like, in what context, like, the best for what? Like, because there's like a million different ways that you could go, okay, what makes hunters most happy versus just the population as a whole? And generally, I look at things from a hunting-centric perspective. And then FWP, obviously, one of the biggest, their constituents are hunters, want to keep hunters happy and cater to some of that. Just because I think that doesn't necessarily mean that's what everybody wants.
Yeah.
And then there's industry and economy and so many factors that it's just, but so I tend to get tunnel vision. I'm like, well, I want more and bigger elk. I want to shoot big bulls. Yeah. But it's just like, have to take a step back sometimes.
Yeah. And FWP is charged with managing the public's wildlife, and there's a lot of different stakeholders that are interested in it and value it in different ways. And so we have to acknowledge that and consider those things when we're managing the wildlife. So obviously hunters are really important, but there's many stakeholders involved. So
for sure. Yeah, the one thing I like to bounce back to, I feel like nobody likes to talk about habitat. It's always because of there's too many wolves, there's too many lions, whatever. And like, yes, predators kill elk. They do. But habitat also influences the effectiveness of those predators killing elk. Yeah. And I get it too because it's a harder lever to pull as a management agency versus with predators or with hunter harvest, like us as predators, that's the easiest lever to pull.
Yeah.
Like, how many permits do we give out? How hard do we hunt these predators? How many things do we let people use to kill wolves or bears or lions? All of these things are the easy levers to pull. The harder ones to pull are, how do we make better forage on the landscape? How do we make more areas open to elk? How do we have more conservation easements and have less development? There's just all these things that's a harder management action, and I feel like a lot of hunters shy away from those, even though those are some of the management actions that could have the greatest impact.
Mm-hmm.
But we're just like, no, we need to kill more wolves. That's the simplest answer. We need to kill more wolves, then we'll have more elk.
Yeah.
But it's never that simple.
Yeah.
And that's like my big goal, is just like, it's like a drop in the bucket. Like, will it have an impact? Sure. But is it like going to have a major impact if we just go hammer every single predator? No, it will make a difference. Yes. Like, I'm not going to pretend that it doesn't. So I guess to bounce back to the project, what do you think some of the management implications could be? Kind of, I alluded to the levers that FWP is able to pull. And obviously you have partners with federal agencies and other, private landowners and all these things too. So how do you view, once this project is complete, what will you be able to do with this data to inform management or inform private landowners or whatever? Like, what's the hope?
What we're trying to do is we're trying to make available a framework that's not only relevant to our study area, but it's relevant to the whole Region 1. And hopefully we can build up this framework that we can apply to other regions as well. So this project, while it does seem very specific to our study area, we are trying to build up a very specific framework that allows managers to be able to, like, as things change or harvest levels change or whatnot, they can adjust their management actions based on these things.
Yes, have a higher confidence of what exactly is going on out there to better make the decisions.
Yeah.
Those decisions are generally like hunter harvest, how much, like, what do we allow hunters to kill, right? Cows versus bulls, and how many extra cow tags are given out, or what bull harvest is allowed, or there's permit areas in parts of the state. I think most of the area up there is a general season for brow tine bull, and then there's cow permits that are given out too. So these are the things that the managers are able to pull in terms of hunter harvest.
Yep.
So that I guess they'll be able to make better informed decisions with those adjustments with this data.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
cool.
That's the hope. Yeah. And predator harvest management is in there too. So,
Gotcha. Yeah. Because right now, I guess I feel like the most adjustable one in my mind would be like lion quotas for predator management, like how many lions are allowed to be killed in each district. Whereas right now, black bears, I mean, every hunter, resident or non-resident, can kill one a year up there right now. Yeah. And it's just seasonally based. You just have the hunting season for the spring, and then there's another one for the fall where every hunter gets to shoot one black bear if they want. And then with wolves, I believe it's pretty open as well. I mean, I think you can get, I don't even know how many wolf tags you can, more than you're going to be able to find, guaranteed.
Definitely. In that study area especially.
Yeah. But again, like you said, it's like, will killing more predators have a major impact? Like, I mean, again, I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Well,
it's like, it's just like, I think it sure doesn't seem like it's going to have a huge impact if we just, but it all adds up. I get it. Like, everything makes a difference, but it's never that simple.
Yeah. And I mean, it may be a combination of things is going to work here, but the habitat stuff is a huge part of this project. And so I think we're going to have some great recommendations for other landowners, whether that's the Forest Service or DNRC, private lands, timber harvest companies. So hopefully that we can work with them to collaborate if they're interested in working with us on these things to improve elk habitat.
Yeah, that'll be really an interesting one. And that's what I always forget too, of like how much private timberland there is in Region 1. Yeah. It's a lot. Like, I mean, sure, we have big tracts of Forest Service too, and obviously that's a partner that you can work with, but it's tough to get habitat projects done on Forest Service just in terms of I don't know. There's always different things, although everything's changing right now, so it could
who
look
knows?
very different in a couple of years. So,
Yeah.
but that's a side tangent we don't need to go down. But yeah, just the private timberland's an interesting one to think about because they are more easily able to do some management actions probably on that land if they wanted to,
If
or
they
were
wanted to, yeah.
incentivized,
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
depending on what their goal is, right?
Yeah.
So that's an interesting aspect to this. The habitat, like I just like to reemphasize how important that is for everything. Like if you don't have food for the animals to eat, what do you expect? Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
They need places to hide. They need food. They need, yeah.
Who are all the people involved with this project? Like
Yeah.
who deserves credit for, like, this is a massive undertaking.
Yeah. It's a big project. We are collaborating with the University of Montana.
Okay.
And so there's several professors there that have grad students on the project. So within FWP, we have, a handful of, like, we have a research biologist who's involved, and myself, and I'm a research technician, so I'm a little under that. But then we have other research technicians helping out. And then the area biologist there is also very involved. So that's within FWP. Within the University of Montana, we have 3 graduate students, so 2 masters and 1 PhD. The PhD student is looking at the calf survival. One of the masters has done all the veg sampling work, timber harvest and elk forage work. And then we have another master's student, which we didn't actually talk about this. It was a camera project.
Oh yeah. I totally skipped over. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a whole other component. That's the thing. There's a lot of parts to this project.
So there's another thing that was happening during the summers, and a whole separate field crew for deploying and checking cameras. They randomly deployed cameras across the landscape. That was primarily to try to estimate the abundance of elk and the carnivores on the landscape.
So that was it's like a random deployment to just kind of canvas a given area to see what's out there.
Yeah.
Because you guys have some reports up on FWP's website that are pretty interesting, where you can kind of see some of this.
Yep.
How many photos were captured of elk, how many photos were captured of wolves, and so again, it's preliminary, but it's pretty cool to see all this stuff.
Yeah. So that's University of Montana. I think we had 3 different professors, 3 different grad students. We had a ton of technicians working for those grad students for each of their individual projects.
A lot of moving parts and a lot of different entities trying to answer different questions.
Yeah,
and that's what's cool. I like how you're able to, kind of share data, like you utilize all this data that's being collected to answer multiple questions.
It's a very cohesive project, and I would say typically when people get their graduate degrees or whatever, they're just on their own little project. But this is like, we're all working towards building up a big product.
Yeah.
And everybody has their piece to play, and we've all collaborated through that process to do it. And I also don't want to leave out, like, the houndsmen and the private landowners, just incredible people, like, have been really valuable for the project, and really appreciate all of that, their hard work and everything. So
it's reassuring knowing that it's not just like one data source. Like, we're not just going off of hunter harvest data.
Yeah.
Because that's just like, okay, that's
often all we have.
Right.
Like that, and maybe aerial survey data.
By including all of this, I think it gives everybody, like hunters and biologists and whatever stakeholders interested in this, is like more confidence. Like, okay, this is a better picture of what's happening instead of just a one data point.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
It's much more holistic, which is a good way to approach it. So
I really appreciate you taking the time to do all this and explain what's going on up there.
I guess I'm just one minor person on the project. Like, there's so much collective knowledge, and like things that I may have said things that maybe aren't quite exactly right, how someone else might explain it, but we have a lot of really, really in-depth, knowledgeable people on the project, and it's cool that we've combined all that into this. So this is a really special project. There's a lot of people, but we're actually getting out there. We're collecting real data on the ground, boots on the ground, hands dirty, like actually collecting data we hope will be useful for making management decisions. So,
well, I appreciate it, Jesse.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, of course.
And it's good to catch up.
Yeah.
Thank you a ton to Montana FWP and Jesse DeVoe for taking the time to sit down with me. We wanted to let you know that the funding for this project came from revenue from Montana hunting and fishing licenses, with matching Pittman-Robertson excise tax money, along with from the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, meaning you can continue to support work like this by buying hunting licenses, buying firearms and ammunition and hunting gear, and by donating to RMEF, which again, if you want to, you can do so by purchasing the elk stamp sticker in the link in the video description.